this is Tony.
This is Paul coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast.
And we're go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, before we get started, I just want to ask if you could please help us out and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd greatly appreciate that. And as always, Friends for Life is currently hiring, so if you'd like to come and work here with us at Friends for Life, head over to friendsforliferc.com and fill out our employment form on the employment page, and we'll get back with you soon. Today, we're doing something old school. If you look back at our first couple of episodes, it was just Tony and myself rocking it solo. And we said, you know what? It's been a long time since we've done that, so we're going to try her once again. So, Tony.
Yes.
How you doing today, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm very super swell. Been super duper busy, as I mean, you're accustomed to my lifestyle. But
I was going to say, so the people that don't know, we'll do a little bit behind the scenes here at the Friends for Life podcast. So, a typical day with Tony involves randomly getting in a car, driving to wherever, who knows where we're going.
Most likely.
Followed by series of back-to-back phone calls.
Yes, the phone doesn't stop.
The phone doesn't stop. And then eventually we wind up back here at the podcast studio. We record stuff, and that's pretty much a day in the life of Tony, but every single day.
Yeah, except maybe Wednesdays.
Wednesdays? Oh.
Wednesday, well, I mean, because we still do midweek minis every now and again on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
But I tried to leave at least a little bit of time just for me, but it's easier to find it in the morning, of course.
Like, waking up early.
Yeah, when everybody else is not around.
Yeah, so we're kicking it old school. We're going back, just me and Tony, for this week, and we're just trying to, get back the old school vibe of our original podcast style, because we've been moving so fast, we haven't had time to just, kind of reorient ourselves back to the beginnings. So
yeah, the very first ones we did, they sucked so bad, but they were very informative, and it was kind of almost, I think, me having an outlet.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty cool.
And we didn't know what we were doing at all.
No, not a clue.
We didn't even have microphones.
Dude.
If you go back and look at episode 1, it's actually pretty hilarious. The funny thing is we were in this very room.
The exact same room.
Exact same room. It looked nothing like it does now. There was no soundproofing. There was no artwork. It was like a white walls and
with
a green wall
with the erase boards,
dry erase boards everywhere. We actually, with the first episode, we had to erase the dry erase boards because they had a bunch of sensitive information on them.
Yeah, had a whole bunch of HIPAA stuff.
Yeah, you were taking pictures of them and erasing them so that you could write them back up when we were done. So yeah, it was interesting. I had a bunch of camera issues during that. Like, my camera just cut out for 3 to 4 minutes or something, and Tony was just talking by himself. It was weird.
Oh man. Yeah, people, go back and watch it and make fun of us too, because we're making fun of ourselves with it.
Yeah, it was a rough go, but we've come a long way since then, and we're really excited that we've weirdly gained some sort of following. So anybody listening, thank you guys so much for that.
Yes, thank you very much.
We started this as kind of like a business promotional thing, but it turned into something much more once we kind of dove into the issues a lot deeper. It turned into conversations about hard issues in the field, which is not what we thought would happen.
No, you know what? What was your original
my vision?
Thought?
Yeah,
it was honestly, man, to teach DSPs more how to get the success that I got from being a DSP, and how to climb that ladder, in a sense. The thing that I think was kind of sad for both of us to realize was that nobody cared. I think in all actuality, our following was more administrative based as time, continued to go. But the goal was to teach the DSPs from anything as simple as customer service to rules and regs, and to try to change the mindset that I preach so hard about, so you can get to the next level or to that next opportunity in your life or in your profession. And as we saw, it did nothing. No one wanted to hear that. No one wanted to be a part of it. So as we, tweaked our model of what we do, we started getting an even stronger following on the sense and the outcry, I guess, of people not feeling appreciated. And not only the appreciation standpoint, as we continue to see the staffing crisis form and begin to grow, it became a platform for outcries for people like, look, we love you, come work with us. And so it's really cool to know that we've transitioned in just in about a year to really talking to meaningful people about meaningful things, from the individuals we've gotten to have on as guests to our future guests in holding positions that can have the opportunity to make change.
Yeah, and it's so weird for me because you'll hear on some of our earlier episodes about how, I'm always talking about my other job in finance. And, Tony and I put in a ton of time to make this a feasible outlet, because we started with, I had my own equipment because I've always been into like video and stuff. And I started my podcast because I'm the kind of person that I don't like to jump into something and say yes until I've tested it myself and make sure that because this is a personal philosophy I kind of live by. Like, if I'm going to do something for you and you're paying me to do it, I don't want it to look bad. Like, I want it to be the best product. And a lot of the time, I think one of my bigger downfalls is that I will kill myself to make something try and be like the best it can possibly be. And there's people like you that are like, I think it's great. I don't know what you're worrying about. So it's good to have that dichotomy in this. And we started and I really hadn't podcasted. I didn't even listen to podcasts when I started this because I was like, I think I had been turned on to Joe Rogan a little bit because everybody talks about him so much. And there's some of the topics he talked about that I was into, like some of the outdoorsy people. So I started my podcast for probably about 5 months before we even did our first podcast. I was trying to learn. And then I kind of got the format down. And we're one of the few podcasts that I know of. I mean, there are tons of podcasts now, but we're one of the few that does video.
Yeah.
Which makes it so much harder because I kind of had more experience in sound than video in the past. And then I took a lot of time to learn video over the last 5 years, I'd say. Ooh, excuse me.
Gotcha.
We just went to lunch, so sorry about that.
It was good. I got bubble tea. I don't really like it.
I got bubbly.
Look, nice.
Not the alcoholic beverage, just the water. But sorry. So yeah, a little more history, and then started this podcast, and I would say, from the learning curve to starting out and figuring out how to get a podcast uploaded to starting a YouTube channel to all this stuff to where we are at now with, like, not to toot my own horn, but our stuff looks good. So like I think we I don't know where did the shift come from, because we've always been, well, I don't know. We haven't always been specifically a podcast about disabilities. That kind of just came over time of like niching down to what because we started out just talking. You and I would come in here and we would just talk about whatever.
Yeah, it was just like getting things off your chest, and especially how strongly convicted I am when it comes to business and stuff and motivation. So we were down that road, but I think the biggest switch came within the first 5-6 episodes. I think we end up having an individual on, and it was like, whoa, like this is the way an individual we serve on. And I think before then we had a couple of DSPs and stuff, some which people you're never going to see because some of them were just bad. I mean, it was a lot of quietness, and it wasn't so much their fault. We were just still new to the interviewing process, how, what to talk about, how to talk about it. But I think once we got like that first or second individual, definitely the second one, I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to have to be specifically streamed for people with developmental differences and the surrounding the surrounding support system.
Yeah, true.
You know. So I think as time progresses, especially once we start dialing into some newer segments, one aspect we're traveling down is talking to more families.
Sure.
You know, families make a lot of the decisions based on the individuals that we care for. But they also have the voting rights to the government change that we need. So if we can get more families here to help show that the economy is headed in one way, I think that'll definitely help switch and open up the door for our next our next, I don't know, mountain.
Yeah,
that we're trying to
iteration
climb.
of the podcast where, and to steer more in, and I know this is not your typical Friends for Life podcast. I mean, we don't have a guest. We're just kind of spitting off the cuff about. We just wanted to give a kind of like a middle of the path, like conversation about how things have been going for us because we are really trying to at this point we have our goals figured out and we have our kind of our values in line with what we want to see changed. And that's what we want this podcast to be, is an implement of change, but not only like a selfish implement of change. I mean, of course we want things to change. So Friends for Life as a business, aside from being disability, whatever, we still need to flourish to be able to continue doing all this stuff. So yes, in some aspects we do want change, but we really want better for the people that we're serving.
Yeah.
And that's why we have so many guests on of, I guess you would say, a higher caliber, like people at top executive levels, a lot of the times trying to brainstorm about what we can do, because as everybody knows right now, we're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
like we're doing what we can to make those changes, and we need you as listeners and people who watch the show to really be vocal. And it's really hard to put yourself out there on social media and talk and give your opinion, because there's always the fear we've all had since we were kids, of just people making fun of you or or arguing with you. I mean, we literally will I had some guy argue on TikTok. We posted a quote by Helen Keller. Oh yeah. And he got super upset about it. He's like, how could she have said that? She can't even talk. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? That's how far away from off, how people think about the disability field. That's just one example. I mean, you're on social media and people aren't afraid to say whatever, and and we try and educate, but it's hard because people mostly don't want to hear it and they don't care. So we're trying to make this a platform of change, and we're trying to steer that road, and we're also trying to do that through sponsorships of the podcast and monetizing. So if you guys have any interest or know people who would like to help sponsor this podcast, and this please. It's not a cash cow. We're not sponsoring the podcast so we can just make money. We're trying to promote these episodes on social media, whether it be YouTube, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Instagram, run advertisements. So this is kind of a plug for our own podcasting sponsorship.
Right.
So if you're listening to this and you know anybody, what we're currently, our model we're going after is X company, whether it's a competitor, whether it's whatever, comes on, we run a commercial at the beginning, the end, the middle, whatever you want of the podcast. We use the money that you're sponsoring the show with to promote that business, that episode specifically, or that series of episodes, and raising awareness, because as everybody knows nowadays, it's with not only podcasts but social media, everything's so locked up in pay to play essentially. So that's something we're really working on too, and we're talking to people trying to gauge interest in that, but we're trying to become an agent of change. Yes. And that's kind of where we're at in our pathway right now. So we have kind of taken a step back. We were putting out almost 3 to 5 shows a week, depending on stuff. And we've kind of taken a step back. We're putting the midweek minis on hold for a little bit. They're coming back eventually, but we're kind of reworking that. and we're working on making better quality, better informative content for you.
We want anytime somebody either listens or watches us, they leave with a nugget or 2 or 3 or 10.
100,000 billion
We want
nuggets.
you to leave with something that matters.
Family pack of McNuggets.
Yeah, there you go. 20, what is that, a 50 piece?
50-piece McNugget.
Yeah, man.
Just for you for free.
Just
we love you.
with some extra sauce. Free of charge.
Sweet and sour.
But it's like we need to always keep that in mind. And I always ask people if you have people that truly believe in you. And I think that I showed that I truly believe in not only what we're doing, but the route that we can and the things that we can get from it by the amount that I invested into it. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, in our field of work, money always comes to play.
Yes, absolutely.
It's unfortunate that a lot of people put their value of their care with the amount of money that they make, which I think is just horrible. And we kind of talked about this before. Like, you can't ask somebody to pay you something that you've never even tried yourself. You know, we were discussing how somebody basically, like, if, let's say I have a problem with my computer. If you've never worked on computers and I say, hey, I have a problem with my computer, can you fix it? Wouldn't you want to try working on a computer first before you just say, yeah, I'm not doing it unless you pay me $75 an hour? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I'll pay you that. Oh, I don't know anything about computers. So it's kind of this flipped universe, I think. And I've mentioned it multiple times before. A lot of the investments and stuff that I made with the money that I've made is what keeps me financially stable. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the work that I do for Friends for Life. You know, it's the value that I'm creating in myself for other areas, for the other companies that I own. And I think a lot of people just get so wrapped up around finances sometimes that it engulfs them from ever really even educating themselves to learn more and have more. So
yeah, and peeling back the curtain a little bit too, we were talking about this mindset on the way to lunch about, how sometimes people don't want to prove their value before they ask for the money, mm-hmm. which is kind of a big deal. Like I said, when I started the podcast, I ran my own podcast for 6 months before we stepped foot in the studio ever, just to try and get a hang of things. So I think what actually happened, from what I can remember, because we've been going so fast, I think what happened is we recorded our first episode here, and I saw how terrible it was, and then I started my podcast, and we didn't release the episode for a very long time, so I wrapped my head around it. Mm-hmm. And now we both have podcasts that are doing well, because I put in a ton of time and effort. A lot. And it's the same thing. Tony and I, and this is kind of might be blowing the whistle a little too early, but I mean, whatever, who cares? Our plan down the road is to make a documentary of some sorts with Friends for Life, whether it be through Friends for Life or some business venture that Tony and I are working on at any given time. And we want to make a documentary about the disability field and to practice this before I ever make a documentary with Tony. I made one myself, and I've been working on it until friggin' 1 a.m. for the last 4 months. And it's kind of that mindset of like, why would I want you to pay me to make a documentary when I've never done it before?
Yeah.
I've made television shows. I've made podcasts. I've made like little mini movie type little cinematic things on YouTube, but I've never actually sat down and made like a mini documentary or like anything of length. So yeah, I think that's a super good point, and I'm not sure where a lot of entitlement comes from with people. I mean, it's just whatever. Everybody's different. Everybody's their own way. Yeah. But I mean, that's just a really tough mindset to have. And this brings us back to our old podcast. We just talk about random stuff like this all the time. And it's like, whether you work, whatever field you work in, sometimes you have to work on your own time. Not necessarily. Okay, I'm not saying show up to work and just work for free all the time, because you're hiring a DSP to do a job. They should work a job. But if they're trying to get a management position or raise, you're going to have to prove that you're worth it. And you're not going to prove that you're worth it by just doing the same thing every day and just being like, I'm not doing that unless you pay me more. Like, you have to show initiative.
Yeah,
or start your own business and see how hard it is.
Like, please. I tell people all the time, start one, show me better. But
because it is.
I've seen people do it, and we actually have people now who are kind of pro bono doing things with our supervisors so they can learn and gain that experience. You know, every company here, if you have the structure and capabilities to scale, every position can be duplicated. All those finances that you want or that you say that you want can be earned. It just takes for you to actually put in some of the dedication. Like what I tell people all the time, you don't have to go to college if you want to be the director, in a sense, of Friends for Life.
Yeah.
You do not. As long as you meet the requirements that the state says that you have, you can be to the highest position. I'll even say at some point somebody can take over CEO for me. I mean, it's not my goal to just have this ironclad hammer. Oh, I'm the top dog. No, like if somebody's better than me at this, even in this podcast, y'all might not hear my voice. If I find somebody better off to do it, I will just come in, because I know that in the long run, it's more than just me. It's more than just Paul. It's more than just Friends for Life. Now, I am very happy that I have created a company that a lot of people call home for the individuals we serve. A lot of people call a place of employment, and a good place of employment, because, I mean, I don't sugarcoat it. If you're not helping our clients with what they need help with, then you're not doing what the job is. Mm-hmm. And it might sound cruel. In the back of my mind, I do care, in a sense, about what other people have going on in their lives.
Yeah.
But I know from a business standpoint, the consumer, the client, the individual, whoever we are getting paid services for, doesn't. Mm-hmm. You know, and if they do, they can only care so much for so long. Yep. Like if you're calling off every Friday night because you have this going on, that going on, well, no matter how caring and nice the company or the individual is, it's like, okay, well, we need somebody to be here to do a job.
Yes.
And I think when we talk about entitlement, there's so many people at this present time looking for jobs and work to make them feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know, it's comfortable for work, but what about the client? Mm-hmm. Like, I got a call today about a client who was not cleaned appropriately. You know, the client, that client's significant other were both pissed at the situation. They really wanted to kick the staff person out completely. But after a little problem resolution and talking, we decided we're going to do a retraining with somebody who they love and they feel is very capable of teaching this person on how to help correctly. And we problem solved. We got to an end. I see way too often now people are doing this. Oh, they don't like me? Well, I don't want to go back over there.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a problem? Nope, I don't want to be a part of it. It's just like, how can you throw your hands up so quick on something so important? Mm-hmm. Like, you remember the class of people that we are working with here. Some of them may not completely understand that there's no other staff person but you.
Yeah.
So instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater type of scenario, I like to retrain, regroup, rethink, and educate.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, being in the... You know, having so many guests and having so many different people we talk to so regularly, I mean, you hear things. You hear, oh, this guy, this girl, whatever, oh, I'm not a big fan of them, and blah, blah. But that doesn't stop us from inviting other people on the show because
right.
I don't have that prejudice because I don't know them. a lot of those times, those are what ends up being like some of our best episodes. Because people aren't hearing other people out. Mm-hmm. Some people are just naturally abrasive, whether they want to be or not. That's just how they are as a person. Some people are cheery and go lucky, and they don't get along. That's just how life is. But to peel the curtain back, and we'll wrap up here soon. You know, I know this isn't a normal episode. I've said that like 4 times already.
Well, this is just part 1. Wait till they hear part 2.
Wait till you hear part 2. But so it kind of goes back to a lot of people. It looks like I was working at a finance company, and then all of a sudden I was just this media guy out of nowhere. But the reality of the story is when I was 18, 19 years old, I went to college for audio engineering at Owens, and then I went into I worked for like a lot of outdoors companies and stuff, and I worked in the outdoors field, and I filmed my own vlogs for years. And you can see them on my YouTube channel. They're terrible. They're the worst thing ever. And, you know, over literally the last 10 years or so, 12, I've been doing this stuff as a hobby. Mm-hmm. I worked in a recording studio for free for at least 6 months. I just started showing up, and I sat with the engineer, and I watched what he was doing. And then here we are. I'm running my own studio, essentially. And I do get a lot of negativity because, you know, you get friends and people who want to do what I'm doing, and they're like, oh, you're so lucky. I was like, I put in 12 years for $0 for this because I love it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's kind of like, people only see the service. They're only seeing what we're letting you see. We're only seeing the podcast. You're not hearing like the really behind the scenes stuff that goes on. I mean, for every podcast you record, that's probably 6 to 10 hours of work.
It's
easily to edit, you know, and do all those graphics and stuff.
And that's not even working out the stuff with the guest and everything. Like, there's so much that goes into play, and I guess this is even how DSPs feel. Like, if you really look at it, I think that DSPs have a view that people don't understand where their worth is. Actually, some of the DSPs, I don't even think some of them understand how much they're really worth. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that from, again, a financial standpoint. We are governed by Medicaid dollars. There's nothing we can do until we get the families out there picketing and we get some legislation changed. But to have all of the opportunities that can teach others, those have been lost because we're too worried about one segment, one portion of what DSP work really is. And I really believe it can all probably be simple. It can be put in a simple way. A DSP is basically a caring person with the underpaid job. I was like, I mean, that's like the simplest form of it.
But the thing is
because
like,
I've met total douchebags who were good at the cleaning portion of the quote unquote DSP, but they could not get the communication part down with the client. You know, you say, hey, good morning. The client, hey, good morning. Hey, what's up? Mm-hmm. Like, you can't do that with everybody. Yeah. You know, sometimes I'm too bubbly for people. You know, I've worked with clients like, man, he just comes in here and he's smiling all the damn time. I just want to play some mat and sit down.
It's all that bubble tea you drink.
Yeah, bubbly bubble tea.
But no, and those are all great points. But the thing that I always come back to, because I mean, I work with you. We work together quite a bit, and we're always together. And I hear sometimes a lot of the calls you're on and stuff, just like while I'm working over here or whatever. And I think a lot of the time people forget or don't know that when I first met you, Tony, that's what you were doing. It's not just like you randomly woke up one day, opened Friends for Life, and you never were a DSP. I mean, I remember when I first met you, you were on the phone 24/7. It would be like, hey, Tony, what's going on? Oh, yeah, let's hang out. Let's do something, blah, blah. Okay, cool, blah, blah, blah. All right, I got to take this call. I'll be right back. And then like an hour later, you'd be back. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you say can sound like harsh to people, I think, because they're just like, oh, this CEO guy, he just knows everything. But I literally watched you go from basically when at the point where I met you, you were more of like in the management position at wherever you were working before, but I don't even remember. But, you know, it's like you were a DSP for how long and so many positions throughout the field that it's like this isn't coming from a place of whatever. Like you went from the shit pay to where you're at now. Of your own volition, you just did it. Like
I got a check stub upstairs in our studio B, and it's for $958. And at that time, I already had 5 kids.
Yeah,
like, and that was bi-weekly. I wasn't getting weekly pay. Yeah. So it was really, and some people are listening to that and probably like, oh, lucky mother. Like, it's, the grind was real.
Yeah.
You know, it truly was. But I knew that there was no reason for me to complain about it because this is what I said I wanted my life to be, you know, and it actually now it gives me even bigger respect. Shout out to a buddy of mine, Frank. He's been in medical school now for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a lot of time into it. But great guy, awesome work and employee-employer relationship. He's never technically worked for Friends for Life, but in the past when we worked together. But we stayed in contact, and he understands the sacrifice that is made. And I have just started to understand the sacrifice that is being made for something that you feel so dear for. Because I used to, oh man, like, wow, I could never go to school for that long amount of time. Like that was kind of my thing. And
you don't have the attention span for it.
Oh, not at all. Not especially to memorize all the stuff that they need to. I am good. My memorization stops after faces. Like if I see your face, I'll probably never forget it again.
Yeah.
But your name, I don't know. I got a 50-50 chance with that one. And that's just where I'm at with understanding, you know, my strengths and my weaknesses, and the same thing for others. And just everybody keep pushing for your strengths.
Yep. And, you know, that was refreshing. We haven't done just a random spit onto the mic podcast for quite a while. So that was really fun. We'll be back again next week with another episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Since it's just me and Tony, I'm not going to do this big introduction, outro kind of stuff you always see on the podcast. But when we say please subscribe, we really do, like, it really does help us out a lot. I mean, you know, the more subscribers, the more visibility that we get on these issues. It's not about us. If it were up to me, I would never be on camera or the microphone. I'm just the producer, so I have to be. But, you know, we really appreciate you guys watching. Hope this was a little fun to get a little backstory on Tony and myself. I know we usually focus on the guests, so.
Hey, and for part 2, we're going to be dropping some knowledge tips. I'm going to have some pro tips for you guys on things that I have done throughout our time here. It's going to kind of go back to some of the old ones that we did. But also, we want to try to really give you some insight in what Friends for Life does in this time that we're in. How do we cover shifts, you know, when things are hard? What are some of the techniques that we use? Like, again, there's going to be a lot of information covered, and the more that you guys subscribe and thumbs up, that helps the algorithm. So thumb us up and all of that good stuff, and we'll go from there.
Alrighty, thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.
Later.